It was needed to keep Carroll from collecting while he appeals the ruling. Joining me now, Tristan Snell, former Assistant Attorney General for New York and lead in the Trump University investigation. And Tristan's also author of Taking Down Trump, 12 Rules for Prosecuting Donald Trump by Someone Who Did It Successfully, which is now out in paperback, by the way. Tristan, welcome. First, let's begin with the $91 million that Trump posted in the E. Jean Carroll case. How did he get the bond, and does it matter who he got it from?
Everything in this case matters, and everything should be explored by the court-appointed monitor, and everything should be explored by investigative journalists, because it was very clear that we were down to the wire in this one on whether or not Donald Trump was going to be able to come up with that money. He kept trying to get extensions of it. And he's already been doing this also with the New York AG case, trying to see if he can get away with only putting up 100 of that $464 million. He's clearly having trouble coming up with cash. He has the possibility of becoming president of the United States again. The possibility of interests, whether domestic or foreign, trying to buy the next president of the United States, possibly, by ingratiating themselves with him by coming up with this money to pay off his debts or to be able to cover them while he's trying to appeal these judgments. This is a major problem. And this is something that everybody needs to be looking at very, very carefully.
You know, Tristan, Trump called E. Jean Carroll a liar at his Georgia rally last night. You would think $91 million later he could keep from defaming her. Does he risk any further legal woes by continuing to publicly trash her?
Yes. The more he does this, the more that she's going to come back and keep asking for additional money. That's going to keep happening. If he can't keep her name out of his mouth, he will have to continue paying. At this point, I think that it's almost a game for him, where he just is daring somebody to continue coming after him for all of this, and that he just doesn't want to back down. He's painted himself into this corner where now he feels like if he does anything, if he stops mentioning her, I think in his head, he thinks that that's going to mean that somehow he gave in, that he surrendered. So he's going to keep on doing this to himself. It is really pathetic, frankly.
So, as we mentioned, with Trump having this other nearly $500 million more coming due in the New York civil fraud trial, that's on March 25th. I mean, look, it's safe to assume he doesn't have that money in cash. So the question is, where could he go to get that kind of money? I mean, we've talked about how investigative journalists need to stay on top of it, but just off the top of your head, we're talking almost $500 million. Where does he go?
Well, not for nothing. Some people have noted that it looks as though Elon Musk may have paid a visit to Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago within the last couple of weeks. We don't know if that's necessarily true, and we don't know what they spoke about, but it's worth noting. Again, we come back to there are people, both in the U.S. as well as abroad, who definitely would find a political interest in helping Donald Trump, if not a financial one. Let's just be clear. He is a terrible financial bet now. He is not, you're not going to make your money back by lending Donald Trump money right now or doing him a favor right now. You may be able to recoup that in political favors. And that's the thing that we really need to worry about. Let's be clear. This is why they ask about people's debts when they do security clearances for top secret and other classified levels of security clearance for the federal government. This is why they do that, because somebody who has major debts is somebody who's vulnerable, because they need to go find the money somewhere, and then that's somebody who might then be compromised. Yeah. So this is something that very much needs to be looked at.
Listen, I just want to say that for the record, Elon Musk has said that he's not going to do any campaign donations this year. campaign donations. This would not necessarily be a campaign donation. I'm just saying what we do know about Elon Musk at this point. Let me ask you about the criminal trial, though, the first one that begins on March 25th. So he was charged with falsifying the business records relating to the hush money payments made to the porn star Stormy Daniels. It was right before the 2016 election. There are some who say this should be actually an election interference case, ultimately. But this may be the only trial before the presidential election. How consequential could it be?
Well, first off, I don't think it's going to be the only trial. One of the biggest things that happened in the last couple of weeks that I think got missed with everything going on is that DOJ announced that its 60-day rule, where they don't want to go after politicians within 60 days of an election, does not apply when someone's already been indicted. So the federal trials into Trump could continue or start or just go on in September and October, which drastically increases the odds that those federal trials could occur before the election. But let's get to the New York criminal trial, because I think people have been sleeping on it. It is going to be a consequential trial. I do believe that there is a stigma attached if he is then voted by a jury to be a convicted felon. And again, these would arise. Let's be clear. There definitely was falsification of business records. It is a slam dunk factually. The only real issue here is whether or not it was done in service of another crime. And there's multiple different angles that the Manhattan DA's office can pursue to get there. That's really the big issue here. But I think when people are looking for the, well, was it actually falsified? I think we're going to hear a very clear, concise, and compelling case that, yes, they took these payments to Daniels, they ran it through Michael Cohen, and then they papered it later to make it look like it was legal fees to Michael Cohen. And you're not only going to hear that from Cohen, you're going to hear it from other people at the Trump Organization, and you're going to hear it from David Pecker, who was the person that received those payments. You're going to hear it from Daniels' attorney and representatives at the time. It's going to be very open and shut. There's only this legal issue that we need to hear about, and the entire thing is just going to be extremely tawdry for Trump. It's not going to paint him in a very good light, and he'll probably make it worse if he decides to take the stand.
There's a lot more to come, which means we're going to see more of you. Tristan Snell, thank you so much. And there are a lot of opinions about this headline, why some Democrats see polls as overestimating Trump's strength. A closer look